Today's very important to us here at Small Town Monsters because we're releasing our 6th film called The Flatwoods Monster, A Legacy of Fear. This was one of the first stories I wanted to tell under the Small Town Monsters umbrella, but it always looked like we wouldn't be able to do this particular story because of the fact that it happened in 1952 and so many of the original witnesses had passed away. Thankfully, we lucked out. We got some interviews with some of those original witnesses, and I made the decision that this would be our 6th film. As we got into filming the movie, for whatever reason, I decided to really push the style of the movie in the direction of an old 1950s movie. If you're familiar with this channel, then you know I've been talking about my love for Ray Harryhausen movies and old 1950s horror. So I wanted to go through some of the projects and some of the films that inspired the style and look of The Flatwoods Monster, A Legacy of Fear. So if you've already seen the Flatwoods Monster movie, then you're probably aware that it very stylistically is influenced by the look and feel of old 1950s movies. We do this through a number of ways. One of them is to make the footage look like it was shot on 16mm, or it's old and film grainy. It's been, run through the ringer as a film. The other way is simply through the color of the film. The film is very bright and colorful, and the idea that there was to make it sort of mimic an old Technicolor process from the late 50s. During the actual shooting of B-roll and things like that, the interviews, we weren't really thinking of 1950s monster movies. We just shot it like we would any Small Town Monsters film. But in post-production, we really pushed the style of the movie. And some of that was influenced by the movies that I grew up on as a kid, so I wanted to run down some of these movies real quick. One of the first movies I remember seeing as a kid is Them, which is this movie about giant ants that go marauding through Los Angeles.
No, we can't take a chance. It might poison the whole city.
It's a really fantastic film. I guess if you're really looking for where we're getting the inspiration, or where you can see the inspiration in the final product, the Flatwoods Monster movie, the editing is probably going to be the best place, because there's a very particular tone and speed and pace I was editing this movie at that sort of reflected those older films. Another movie I love is The Blob, which is obviously a classic. It stars Steve McQueen. And I realized this is after, some of these movies are after the point where the Flatwoods Monster sighting happened. It doesn't matter. We're just trying to grab a style and tone from those old films. It came from outer space. So this is a movie that I had actually never seen before. I bought it during the lead up to the Flatwoods Monster editing, and I was actually really shocked at how good the movie is.
Yes, it came from outer space.
The special effects were really cool. The titular monster was actually really cool too. And this was one that I watched repeatedly again during the making of the movie, just to sort of try to figure out what the pace was that they were editing those old 1950s movie at. I think for movies like It Came from Outer Space and The Blob, where you can really see those elements shine through, is in this Snitowski scene in our movie.
He got out, started going towards that light, smell getting worse, he was stumbling.
The next one was This Island Earth. An absolutely incredible movie. I'd never seen it before. I was blown away by the visual effects, especially for the 1950s, I want to say. I'm not even sure. 1955 this was made. Again, it just really inspired the editing of the Flatwoods Monster. The Man from Planet X.
To think.
And this is sort of a forebear for another movie we're going to be getting to next. It's about an alien that comes to Earth and crashes in the marshes near, I want to say it's Scotland. It's extremely hokey, but also really enjoyable. And the costume, the alien costume, is so funny. And obviously another one that's a classic is The Day the Earth Stood Still. And I've seen this movie probably 200 times. It's one I watched a lot as a kid. It's obviously got one of the most famous robots of all time in Gort. And the style and the look of the movie was a huge inspiration for the Flatwoods Monster movie. So then I gotta get to what is probably in my top 10 films of all time, and that is The Earth versus the Flying Saucers.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets. The whole world.
And this is a Ray Harryhausen classic, and it's essentially just a lot of really cool stop motion sequences of UFOs destroying major landmarks. It's a great movie. I really recommend watching it.
Hair-raising terror.
Sort of unusual on this next one, but the Universal Monsters collection.
Called Mad is turned loose to strike terror into the hearts of men.
I grew up loving Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man especially is one of my all-time favorite films. Now, most of the Universal movies were made in the 30s and 40s, but it's still, there's a very specific tone to those movies, and I wanted some of that to be in the Flatwoods Monster. So look for it. It might be there, it might not. So anyway, this is just my way of introducing you guys to some of the movies that we watched to sort of push ourselves into the right headspace as we were editing the Flatwoods Monster. And part of what we're doing is paying homage to those movies, the movies that we loved, that obviously some of us, myself, grew up on. And you can't do a movie like the Flatwoods Monster, which is set in the 1950s and involves a flying saucer and a bizarre being from another planet, without sort of paying homage to something like The Man from Planet X. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you're checking out the Flatwoods Monster today. It's streaming on Amazon, it's streaming on Vimeo, and it's available on DVD. Shop.smalltownmonsters.com if you're looking for DVDs. And there's a little bit of a behind the scenes featurette on the DVD where I go into the process of actually making the movie, and you can see things like the behind the scenes footage of our 13-foot tall monster and all sorts of stuff. So thanks for watching Small Town Filmmaker. We're here at least once a week. This is the second episode this week. We'll be back.